episode 34, a dual episode with me and our guest Colman Power from Ireland. And we're going to talk about organic fitness and organic gardening and so much more about gut health today on Cultivating Guts. Some of the stories that Colman shared with us. So much information packed into this episode and so much just fun and light and even deep conversation. It is a wealth of an episode, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Ask me any questions. Go ahead and reach out to Colman Power on Instagram or TikTok if you've got questions there. And again, his book is brand new, #1 bestseller, and we'll have that down below in the show notes. You can click and get your own copy of Colman Power's book. I'm here for you, and I'm excited to see all your benefits from eating healthy, from eating plants and vegetables again, and including more and more of those great colors in your diet. Satnam, I love you guys. So if you love this episode, remember to share it with your friends and send it to anyone who may love this inspiration and information that we share. To get my newest book, The Ultimate Green Witch Garden Planner, you can visit us on Amazon, or you can get it over at www.cultivatingguts.com. We also have our Little Witches Moon Gardening Club out there, and our first kickoff and first club meeting is October 15th, and you can sign up at www.cultivatingguts.com as well. And you'll see everything else you need to get started with gardening, including our gardening masterclass, so you can get growing your own food to help your gut. Today's podcast is sponsored by Non-Disclosure Apparel, and it is my go-to everyday bra, like we've been talking about on the podcast. Super excited when I met Becky a little over a year ago and found their brand new Ellie bralettes. Actually, I'm wearing one today. Not only because it has nipple coverage, but also because it has no wiring. It is super, super comfortable. It's not compressing like a sports bra would be. And I can wear it under t-shirts. No issues, no nipples. And people that are listening to the podcast are probably like, what, Tiffany? Honestly, yeah, my girls wear them. Our photographer now has one, and it is becoming this thing. And so if you do not yet have yourself an Ellie bralette, not only is it a female-owned company, designed and made in the USA, right here in the US, it is a company that, and if you go back to one of our earlier podcasts, you're going to hear Becky, but Becky designed this company for her own need and to benefit other women and other little girls who were having embarrassing moments because their nipples were showing through their t-shirts or showing through their dresses. So definitely, I am super excited to have Non-Disclosure Apparel as a podcast sponsor for my own reasons, but also so we can help more young girls and women and just people that are, maybe you're doing yoga, you're doing farm chores, you're doing whatever, you're working from home. It's your everyday go-to bra. And we have a very special discount for our community only. And that code is GFMOM15. That saves you 15% off your total purchase. And then if you order 2 Ellie bralettes, you will also receive free shipping. So we'll put all those details in the show notes, but definitely check out the Ellie bralette by Non-Disclosure Apparel. Welcome back to Cultivating Guts. We have Colman Power here. He is an international guest, which is super exciting, and brand new book out, which he'll get to talk about as well. And we both love food and nutrition and health. And so I feel like he's one of the perfect guests for our podcast. And so welcome, Colman. And I'd love for you to let the listeners know kind of a little bit more about you and how you got into your field of work and how you got into working with nutrition and lifestyle.
Tiffany, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. And yes, we are so suited. We're both people that are interested in food because food literally changes people's lives. And I suppose to give you a little bit of a background about myself, I'm based over here in Ireland, about an hour away from Dublin. And my whole ethos is getting people eating local, fresh and organic produce. And the whole idea of it is organic is the gold standard. Why? Because it's grown without the likes of harsh chemicals. And you cannot talk about health without mentioning that major fact. Like, food doesn't have to be grown with GMO seeds. And my whole ethos then on top of that would be either grow your own or buy it. And as I sit here with a runner bean, that's completely different to what you would ever get inside in your standard shops. When I first started, I suppose, in my early 30s now. When I first started, I had a completely different diet. I had an autoimmune disease. I had eczema. I had rashes that literally would have tore my skin apart. I had asthma, mild asthma, but still asthma, and which held me back on sports. And being someone who was extremely into wanting to be the best they possibly could on the pitch and vote off the fit for my own health, it held me back foods because the high percentage of the foods, even though we would have had a quote unquote healthy diet, it wasn't chemical free. And that's what we're trying to get back to. That was the standard, I suppose, years ago. But now, as we progress, people are expecting cheap food. And really, on top of that point, food is never cheap. And if it is cheap, the cost is not paid at the counter. It shouldn't be 49 cents. It shouldn't be $1. Okay. If you're ever going to spend money, spend it on food, because food is medicine. And I am a firm believer that when you start to eat foods that suit you and your gut and your activity levels, matching it to your fitness goal, you will excel. Your skin will glow. You'll have more energy. Because for the most part, people say, Colman, what are you? Just tell me one thing that you're taking that literally would give me as much energy or as you currently have, because I want it. I want it. If you said it to me in a bottle, and I tell the people, I just put them through a program where they're literally eating more single ingredient foods. Some people don't tolerate the beans because why they're high in a certain type of fiber that it is difficult for them to currently digest. Some people don't tolerate dairy due to their permeable gut health. And as a result of that, you need to improve your gut lining with healthy fats. And all those things are kind of small, but they add up over time. So what you want to do is you want to find a diet that suits you. There's no one fix that suits everybody, but the principles, the basic principles of health still apply. Eating single ingredient foods that are grown without harsh chemicals, having proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in your diet, because that's exactly what the body runs off. And the more you stick to a single ingredient, the better it is for your overall health. And my diet wasn't perfect. And what you want to do, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. You're looking for an improvement. And how you do that is you say, okay, I'm all right where I am right now, but I want to be better. How can I do that? And it's not about being 100% organic. It's more so about a lifestyle of adding in one more thing. If you could switch from oats, non-organic oats, to organic oats, that's a simple switch. If you're having oats every single day, that's one simple switch to improve your health. And that would be, I suppose, me leaning towards that question I always get asked. What's the most important food to get organically? Some people say there's a dirty dozen list, which I do have in the book. But really and truly, what I stress after mentioning that, there is a clean 15, a dirty dozen list. It's something that you eat the most of. So whether it's potatoes, whether it's dairy, whether it's, as I said, oats, or it's beans, or it's tofu, or it's tempeh, whatever diet you're currently on, the one and thing that you're eating the most of is the one that's most important.
That's so true. So true. For the last decade, I worked with a lot of women and children with either food allergies or autoimmune conditions. And it wasn't as much about changing everything at once. It was, like you just said, one thing at a time. What can you do? The one thing. Yeah. So, and the other interesting thing that I picked up on as you're talking is, the chemical stuff. And right now, I feel like there's this big push starting, at least in the States. And then I actually picked up a book recently at the bookstore, and it was about the Queen's Gardens and the biodynamics of, mixing stuff back into the soil to create that regeneration of the microbiome, just like we need in our gut, in the soil. And
That's so
so,
cool. Yeah, you're so cool.
yeah,
And it's right to mention that. Like, a lot of people talk about, inclusive of myself, about your beneficial gut bacteria, but also in the soil, there's so many different beneficial microorganisms, which are just tiny things that you mightn't be able to see. And there are larger items, and we'll call them such as the worms that you can see, but there's even tinier things like that. And they're typically like mycorrhiza fungi, which are what actually mushrooms are made from. So if you've ever seen white filament or leaves piled up in the corner of a sidewalk, that is the first sign of the breaking down of the mycorrhiza. That happens in and underneath the soil. And that happens more often than not on organic farms that are using regenerative agriculture. And I'm going to stress this point. Farms don't have to be registered as organic to gain the benefit of chemical-free foods. That is a really important point. What you need to do is source foods, know where your food comes from. either you're growing your own or you're getting it from a farmer who's reputable, can tell you, oh yeah, how is the animals, how are they treated? There's a photograph of them. Grant, I'm going to go straight to the farm, buy whatever food items he can currently supply me with. You can get veg boxes delivered to your door. And or then again, depending on what you have, you grow in pots. Basil is a classic one. Why? Because it's an adaptogenic herb, and I do love that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much to unpack. It's exciting. Uh so where you're at in Ireland, what are your go-to things to grow that's easy for somebody that's just kind of starting out and wants to introduce more single foods?
Single ingredient foods, right? Potatoes are quite an easy one. Tomatoes, and what I did was in the book I ended up putting. Let me show you the book for those people if it's on YouTube after. This is the book. It's Amazon #1 bestseller. This took me so long. I don't care. It took me ages to write. And I am dyslexic, and that made it even harder. That's why I busted my ass off to get this book out.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So Amazon, they can find it.
Yeah,
All right.
it's on
We'll
Amazon.
post the link too below in the show notes so people can just like click and get it.
So the simplest foods would definitely be trying out the likes of potatoes, trying out your tomatoes or tomatoes. Then I would go for a couple of different spices and beans. And those are the kind of ones that even if you fail, don't ever see it as a negative. See it as how something, a feedback. Failure is feedback. That's really important about any fitness or food growing. And I love the comparison you can do in between. So another one that really is a no-brainer is fruit bushes.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And fruit trees. Very little maintenance in that too. I bring it back because I always get it. Coleman, I have no green fingers. In fact, they're spotless. I work in an office all day. I say, you buy yourself an apple tree, put it in a pot. No, they say, oh, I have no garden. Put it in a pot. Put it up against a south-facing wall or anywhere where it's getting a lot of sun, and it will give you fruit.
Yeah.
That's how giving nature is. But if you
Yeah.
had grass, put it in the grass, and it's going to give you, in 3 years, if you get a certain variety of them, it's going to give you 100 apples. 100 apples! And they're really important to get organically. Why? Because they can be sprayed up to 10 times in a growing season. And they're on that list of the dirty dozen food items where the vegetable or fruits to consume organically. And other ones that are really important are the ones we typically eat the flesh of. So that's berries, that's the spinach, your kale, your rocket, your arugula, your beetroot leaves. Any of those are really important. Why? Because when the chemicals are sprayed, that's the point of which we then enter it. Even washing it, there is an opportunity to soak them if they're non-organic in um, water. Some of the chemicals can come off them. But going back to the simple things to definitely try out is definitely herbs. Herbs and pots get you out of trouble because what? Again, it's the simple things that are going to help you. And herbs are even better and have higher antioxidants, which is beneficial for your gut health. So, and reducing stress in your body, less stress, more energy. So parsley, basil, oregano, all these things can definitely grow in pots on a windowsill. If you and they don't move, they don't, I suppose, necessarily have to be a huge area that you have to be growing in. Warm windowsill, get you out of trouble there. But if you're growing your own basil, I end up pinching the top ones because a lot of people say, "Oh man, my basil is always dying, my basil is always dying." Only harvest the top two emerging leaves. That's going to prolong the life of it. Little growing tip. It's because I have a master's degree in organic horticulture and really my dirty fingers after coming in from the veg patch. The whole idea of it is like grass. When you top the head
The
of the
top.
grass, two side shoots come out.
Yeah.
And then that's what people don't do. People take all the lower leaves and then they strip the plant and say, "Oh, my basil plant died." And say, "What did you do?" "Oh, I just took all the leaves off." What does a plant need to survive? Needs leaves. Needs leaves, lads. So sort that out.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because then the plants become bushier. And okay, so we grow, at least where I'm at, similar, right? So we've got 4 varieties of potatoes and we have tomatoes, and we had tomato seeds come over from Poland as well. So we've got a cross variety of tomatoes this year. The herbs, and then we just added, I've got arona berries, which I think are called, they don't call them arona berry, I don't think, in Europe all the time, sometimes chokeberry,
Yeah, no,
depending on which world you're in or
yeah,
country. And
I
then
know because I have a lot of
red and
followers.
black currants.
Red and black currants, love it.
And yeah, so very similar styles, I think, to at least climate wise, then on what we're able to grow. So that's interesting.
Zucchinis, another really
Yes,
easy one,
zucchinis.
yeah, which is also called courgette in Europe, based listeners. And grow a zucchini or courgette. The first time I ever grew it was about 7 or 8 years ago, and what ends up happening is if you miss it, like you miss the harvest of a courgette, it literally will turn and double the size. So this thing was literally about 3 foot long. It's absolutely massive. But they're a real easy one, no brainer. They're a great weed suppressant, and I'm going to give you another tip, I suppose, about growing is something called the Three Sisters. So three plants in the one bed. The Native Americans used to do this years ago. So they used to plant all these three crops that are harvested at different times of the year. So they went and sowed their sweet corn or corn, the maize, you sowed your squash, and then you sowed your climbing beans. So what ended up happening is
Oh,
just the maize went up tall, then the beans climbed around the likes of the frame around it, and the squash covered as a weed suppressant. Lads, it's amazing.
that
It
is
works in small little
so
gardens as
good.
well. Three different crops, one spot, you're winning. You need a meter squared. What is a meter squared? A meter by a meter by a meter by a
Yeah.
meter. You can get an abundance of food in that one spot with no work after you plant. Like the
Yeah.
weeding, nah, doesn't exist. The harvesting, the eating, yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So, when do you think is the best time to dig out the potatoes?
After they flower.
After they flower. Okay.
No, yeah, that would definitely be something that I would get people to keep a note of. And other things about potatoes and talking about gut health. A lot of people demonize potatoes. They say, "Oh man, gut doesn't really like it. I get bloated," and yeah, that can happen with people. So with people that I mentor and coach on the program, I get them to do a little bit of a health hack. So cooking your potatoes and leaving them cool, and either reheating them or having them in a salad the next day as a cold, it's able to build on a type of starch. It's called resistant starch, which helps it easier digest your microorganisms to digest that type of food. So these are just small, different little health hacks. Another one is for another carbohydrate, because that's what your beneficial microorganisms feed off. So I would definitely recommend soaking your oats overnight. And then that can also be done with beans as well. A lot of people say they can't tolerate beans, and then beans get a bad rap because there's oxalates and they're supposedly a toxin. But again, steeping and rinsing are all these little small little things that help to, I suppose, help your body to adapt. And that's key because fiber is one thing that people should be definitely adding in more to their diet, and protein. So where do you get the two of those? Beans. Absolute
Beans.
breadwinner.
Yeah.
Okay? Plant-based protein and fiber. And remember that 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. You want to be happier and healthier? Start eating more greens.
That's so true.
Beans.
So
Mm.
true. And yet it's the hardest thing sometimes for some people to get to.
Mm.
Um, I know when we work with children, we talk about colors and making sure they have 5 colors on their plate, because otherwise you'll see orange and yellow and white and it's just all grain, because that's what some children, not all of them, will like gravitate toward. And so then you have to talk about rainbows. Do you have other tricks for helping ensure that we get more green in our daily intake?
Yeah, another one, an easy one to grow, and glad we went back to it, is microgreens. So I have a video on my YouTube, and I'm pretty sure it's on my TikTok as well. Literally, a yogurt tub. I'm glad it's an organic one, otherwise it'd be a big fraud. So this is an organic yogurt tub. It's empty, nothing in it. But you can literally half that, a little bit of compost or a little bit of soil or dirt, whatever you're calling it, put that and in a warm windowsill, sprinkle some microgreen seeds. You get them online, and in 14 days, you can get the simplest, highest, and they've higher antioxidants than the fully mature plant. Go with dark colours, so purple, red radish, purple broccoli can be something in 14 days. And if you're like, oh man, I've eaten all my microgreens, get more yogurt tubs, make more of these, and literally successionally sow. So what I end up doing with clients is they end up using a succession of sowing on a Monday and then on a Friday. So they have some for the start of the week, they have some for the end of the week. So this is literally 2 tubs, and if you add 2 yogurts throughout the week, if it was yourself or your partner or your family members, 2 yogurts sown on the likes of a Monday, 2 on a Friday, you get microgreens twice a week, fresh. You can eat the whole lot of that. Do you know what I mean? That would be great for your gut health, and most certainly the people looking for, I suppose, better skin. That comes from improving your gut health, but that's what you want. That's what you need. Purple, because that's typically the color that we don't get enough of in our diet. As we were chatting about, Tiffany, it's the green. We often do get a little bit of green. We often do get maybe some oranges, maybe some reds, if it'd be great too. But purple, it's an antioxidant called anthocyanin, and anthocyanin is able to reduce wrinkles and improve your cognitive function. So add purple to your diet.
Especially if you're getting old. No. Oh, wow. Okay. What I'm trying to think what other questions. There's so much to ask. Um,
So
Tell
yeah,
us more about kind of what do you do when you have a client that you do need to, like, what are some of those first steps that you guys walk through together to get them feeling better?
yeah, well, I suppose the first thing I do with people, I would definitely ask them where they're at right now. So I'm asking them, what's their activity levels like? What's their food consumption, breakfast, lunch, and dinner? So straight away, their activity. Are they getting outside first thing in the morning? Okay, the organic fitness program is based off people getting outside because morning sunlight and light is really important and key. Why? Especially on the skin, because your skin is your largest organ in your body. A lot of people demonize the sun. Without it, we would actually die. Plants would not grow. Veg, animals be over in less than a week because nothing would be able to. We wouldn't be able to eat. So that's the first thing: getting people outside. And we talked a little about beneficial microorganisms in your stomach. When we touch on, there are beneficial microorganisms located on your skin, and getting outside with wind that passes through the likes of the trees or the forest or the beaches or the city or the town or the village that you're currently in, those all have different microorganisms. So when you get outside, you can try to go to different areas. That's going to improve your immune system. Your immune system is located, 70% of it is in your gut. So all those things are really key. Getting people to get 10,000 steps. Why? Because that is something that can burn between 300 and 500 calories. So I get people to literally improve their overall activity, which has a knock-on effect to their health, which is linked into their mental health. Why? Because again, that simple fact, 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. Then the foods. So what are you having for breakfast? If you're not having breakfast, you're just having coffee, that's not ideal. If you have nothing, if you make poor food choices for the rest of the day. But coffee isn't bad. A lot of people say, "God, what? Can't believe you just said coffee isn't bad. I love you." Okay, people nearly coming down the phone here to me. God, man, oh my God, I love you. There is benefits to coffee. I'm going to tell the negatives first. Okay,
All right.
make a sandwich out of it. So the negatives are if you have coffee in excessive amounts, it can cause the jitters. I don't need coffee. People think I'm on coffee. I drink coffee. I don't need it because I'm doing other things. But the point of which is coffee negative effects after 1 o'clock because it has a 10.5 hour life cycle, which can negatively affect your sleep. When you have a poor night's sleep, it affects your hunger hormones. Those are the negative sides. Benefits of coffee, people love it. It gives you that alertness. Okay, it affects your adrenals. But what we want to do is you want to consume it, and in the morning, if you are someone who drinks coffee and gain the advantage of fiber, because what is coffee made from? It's made from a bean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're winning on that. So all you coffee goers out there, you can tell people in the office, "Hey Joe, yeah, Colman said coffee's good. I'm going to drink it every day." You can. Just don't drink it after 1 o'clock if you don't have, I suppose, want a poor or night's sleep. And people say, "Oh, it doesn't affect me." It does. It's just you don't have, I suppose, the different symptoms of you remembering when you woke up or falling into that deep state of sleep. The next thing you have to go on to is if you had only coffee for lunch, what and when is your next meal? The next meal is very important. Whenever you have it, breakfast, breaking the fast. If you do intermittent fasting, it's key that you have proteins and healthy fats. Always prioritize those on your plate because protein is something that's essential, and foods that contain all 9 essential amino acids, which are the building blocks of your muscle. But not only that, protein is something that it keeps you fuller for longer. So whatever your fitness goal, whether it's weight loss or it's building lean muscle tissue, protein is key every single day for every meal. And the protein sources that contain all 9 essential amino acids would be chicken, fish, turkey, eggs, tofu, tempeh, hemp seeds, and you have your quinoa and bulgur wheat or quinoa, whatever the cool kids are calling it these days. Those are the things and that are a complete protein in your diet. There are also alternatives, such as I said, plant-based sources of protein, such as beans and peas, but they're incomplete. So you must have them. I'm very image orientated. So we have two hands here. We come together to have incomplete protein, such as your pea or bean. Then we have potatoes. When you have and combine those together, they make all 9 essential amino acids. That happens with nuts and grains as well as another one. And the
That's
point
a
of
good
which is that
visual to help remember
yeah,
that.
yeah, I'm a visual guy. So literally
Yeah.
fingers out, coming together, interlock, make sure all 9 essential amino acids. If we could chop off one thumb, which I nearly actually did at one stage, that's for a
It's all
different
right.
podcast.
I have a hole in a finger because I accidentally slipped on the drill and went through my finger. So
Oh my god, that's so fun. When I was writing the book, I was doing this ritual where I had to do a couple of different things in the morning. So I had to do a certain type of a couple of push-ups of exercise to get the blood flowing. Then I had a ritual setting the fire. Then I was that was for the late evening, and then I was ready to sit down on my laptop and most certainly type it out. So it was ended up setting the fire, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm running out of kindling." So that's like the small sticks for anyone who doesn't know what
yeah.
kindling is. And I was like, "Oh, I have no kindling left, but I have a big massive block. I just take the corner off it." So then I went, and I was like, "Oh, jeez, there's a big knot in it there." So what I'll do is, I get it. I'm gonna get this one. Took a big massive whack at it. Boom, bop. Oh my god! I just went. I'm after hitting my hand. I can't be that bad. I looked at it and I was like, I've already done the things that I said I was going to do in the ritual to write in the book. I have to write in the book. And my finger was absolutely pumping. Finger was pumping. So
Oh
I was
my
like,
gosh.
at this at the laptop. And I remember going, yeah, if I can get through the first 5 minutes, that's it. I've got this. I remember going an hour and going, yeah, it's not that bad. Long story short, ended up, it was like, can't be that bad. I've already done an hour typing and what throughout the book. Went up, did a couple of jobs on the farm. Then I was like, better go to the doctors now. Ended up going up to the doctors, and inevitably what happened was met the nurse at the door, and she was like, "Oh my god, what happened to you?" With a big massive glove on, stop the blood coming out. Like, and I was like, "Oh my god, I had a fight with the missus," and she was like, "Oh my god,
Oh
is she okay?" And then I said, "Oh my god, she's not here. I am." And then they were like, "Oh my god, we'll bring you straight through." And
no.
they were like, "What's the pain like?" I was like, "Oh, maybe a 9.5." And then I was like, closing one eye, and she's like, "Oh, we'll skip all. We have an emergency. Bring this man in." So we went straight up to the top of the queue, and the doctor met me and said, "Okay, take off the little bit of a bandage I had on, and the big massive glove with pure red." And she said, "When did that happen?" About an hour ago there. And then he was like, "That did not happen an hour ago, sir." And I was like, "Couple of hours ago?" And I was
Oh
like, "What
no.
time?" By 5:30 in the morning. Man, it is close to lunchtime. You've been hanging on to that finger for too long. But that was
Yeah.
just, I suppose, the side story to the determination to write in this book.
That's
And
awesome. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Those war wounds, they happen though, I
yeah, and it's a
think.
story for life. That's a story for life, and that, I suppose, was me being stubborn and
You
got
were
through it and staved the finger still there. I have
you
all 10.
saved the
So
finger. Yeah.
it's finger. That was just going back to a complete protein having 9 fingers or just having the 10. Um, and we can bring it back to that. Or you can cut the whole section out that might be boring. People won't even
No,
want to
I
know.
think it's hilarious. It's a
Uh,
real story. Many
there
people
is
can
the scar
relate.
is there. 11 stitches. Pity I couldn't have 9. That would have been very funny. 9. Oh my god, that could have really. I'll tell people it's 9 stitches in future. So yeah, those are the incomplete proteins. The other thing you really have to focus in on is your healthy fats. Healthy fats are essential. They do not make you fat. They're so good for your gut health. Okay, if you're looking for better skin, it's key because what fats do, essentially the omega 3 and the omega 6 thing, what you want more of. There is omega 9, but our body already makes that. So if you see a product that says essential 3, 6, and 9, you kind of go, we don't necessarily need the 9, but you need the 3 and you need the 6 because the body cannot make them, which makes them vital for optimal health. So you're getting them again from whether you eat dairy or not, grass-fed animals that have higher omega 3. Omega 3 is anti-inflammatory. That's what you want more of. And all fruits and vegetables are anti-inflammatory. So this is where I can get a bit more technical and I break it down for people where they're at right now with the information that they have. So it's not that beans are bad because they cause bloating. They cause they have anti-inflammatory properties. It's not that meat is necessarily bad because not all meat is created equally, whether it's grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic,
That is an
shipped. Yeah.
interesting. So probably 4 or 5 years ago, probably 5 years ago, I sat down with a grass-fed cattle farmer in Texas, and he was doing a lot of research on what would happen if you fed the cows corn instead of grass, and it was changing their omega. It was actually changing the omega that was produced in the meat, and so he was doing a whole research on it, and it was so yeah, the science. You're right. It's very interesting how it all kind of comes together, and does what it's supposed to when it's correct, but when we interfere, it starts to change the molecules in the animals.
Like food is medicine, but make sure you're taking the right type of or eating the right type of food to get yourself in the right type of medicine, if you get me. I'm a holistic, I suppose, practitioner. I get people to eat the best foods they possibly can to suit them and their fitness goals. Whether they have religious beliefs on a certain type of diet, that's absolutely fine. And then they might have to take certain supplements. And the definition of a supplement is to supplement what you cannot get from your diet. Like the more foods that you get from single ingredient, grass fed, organic, that you can either get at a country market or grow your own is the best bang for your buck. And because foods change the way you look, feel, and how much energy levels you have. That's such an important point.
That's awesome. I have one last question for you.
Shoot me.
How do you cultivate guts every day in your own life?
How do I cultivate guts? I don't understand the question. Cultivate to me means to harvest, but maybe re-ask me that question again. How do I
How
cultivate?
do
How
you
do I improve my
cultivate your guts? Yeah, in your own life.
cultivate? I hope I'm understanding the question right. How do I cultivate it? How do I improve my gut health? Is that maybe
Yes,
what you
that
mean?
would be a
All
great
right,
one to
great.
do it.
Cultivate. I being a kind of a farmer and a grower, I'm kind of like, how do I harvest guts? I'm like, don't really want to go into that with the listeners. Maybe. Yeah.
There's
Okay.
different ways that people take it, which is why I ask it as a metaphor. Yes.
All right. Okay. How do I improve my gut? I most certainly love to add in fermented foods. So fermented foods for me would be miso, which is something that I definitely do recommend people to add in. Sauerkraut. You can add kefir. You can have the beneficial sourdough bread, which is a complex carbohydrate, which I don't demonize. Why? Again, not all food is created equally. If you can make your own from organic grain, which is great. I've I suppose a huge heritage in Ireland for home baking, and I haven't made sourdough bread, but I would make breads on a weekly basis to have it throughout. And it's a great, I suppose, sign of peace as well if you come to someone's family member or a friend or family member's house to bring them a loaf of bread. So definitely the advantage or adding in fermented foods with massive diversity for optimal health would be how I would improve my gut.
I love that answer. Love that answer. Um, okay, tell us a little bit more about the book and how can we find you online if people want to connect or reach out to you to see if they can work with you.
This is the best book in the world. This is the best book in the world. It went Amazon #1 on weight loss, on nutrition, on health, on organic growing. I think organic gardening was the fifth one. And
That's
where you
awesome.
can get it is on Amazon at this moment in time. It is the name of the book is The Power of Organic Fitness. It's me on the front of it. You can't miss me. It's me with that curly head and a load of vegetables and fruits, I think, on the front as well. And anyone looking to contact me personally, you can go through my social medias. It's my name, but you spell it Colman. So Colman Power Organic Fitness on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it, I'm there. And if you put an E in there, you get Ronnie Coleman, and he's a completely different man.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for
Really
having me.
enjoyed the conversation. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Share with me your favorite part. Was there one part that you just were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea? Or were there parts where you just wanted to laugh like myself at some of the stories that Coleman shared with us? So much information packed into this episode and so much just fun and light and even deep conversation. It is a wealth of an episode, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Ask me any questions. Go ahead and reach out to Coleman Power on Instagram or TikTok if you've got questions there. And again, his book is brand new, #1 bestseller. And we'll have that down below in the show notes. So you can click and get your own copy of Coleman Power's book. I'm here for you, and I'm excited to see all your benefits from eating healthy, from eating, plants and vegetables again, and including more and more of those great colors in your diet. Satnam, I love you guys. So if you love this episode, remember to share it with your friends and send it to anyone who may love this inspiration and information that we share. To get my newest book, The Ultimate Green Witch Garden Planner, you can visit us on Amazon or you can get it over at www.cultivatingguts.com. We also have our Little Witches Moon Gardening Club out there, and our first kickoff and first club meeting is October 15th, and you can sign up at www.cultivatingguts.com as well. And you'll see everything else you need to get started with gardening, including our gardening masterclass, so you can get growing your own food to help your gut.